Welcome to the DNX podcast, the number one resource for entrepreneurs, nomads, and impact-driven souls. And I am your coach, Sylvia Christman. Welcome back. We're here today with Robbe Richman. He's a culture hacker, keynote speaker. He used to be the culture strategist at Zappos, and he's also the creator of the Xpill. Hi, Robbe. How are you?
Hey, Sylvia. Doing great.
Tell me more about the Xpill and the process.
Yeah, so Xpill started off with this question, could we make the movie The Matrix real? And it started off with just some red Tic Tacs pretending they're the red pill, and oddly enough, people had some pretty big reactions. So it's a whole long story to it, but through the years, I've just been experimenting with first red Tic Tacs, then I found some red vitamins, and then I actually called up a supplement company, made my own pills, where I asked people, what do you want? And we go through a process asking, why do you want it? And what's the emotion behind it? And it can be an amazing conversation. It's a pill with nothing in it. It just has brown rice powder, but it's amazing. It's one thing to have an intention, and it's another thing to set an intention and do something you literally can't take back. And the unconscious mind and the conscious mind both know once you swallow that pill, it is game on and you're down the rabbit hole. And people have had all kinds of different responses to it. I've seen people shake, sweat, get nervous, get excited, and have big results doing it with some type of commitment that they're putting into the pill, whether it be a feeling that they're looking to bring into their lives or an actual commitment for something that they want to do. And so I found it bypasses hours and hours of coaching and, therapeutic kind of processes when we just put a pill in front of somebody and have a conversation and say, okay, what are you taking this for and why? And it's amazing how much it's an actual visceral reaction that people have, and they get really fast results.
Yeah, I remember taking the Xpill. I think you gave it to me, what was that, a couple of years ago, didn't you? Yeah, that was quite a profound process, and I did actually execute on what I said I would. So what are you working on today?
Now I'm working on this whole concept called the 48-hour day. I've been obsessed with time and the relationship between time and space. And it's been very esoteric, theoretical, kind of Einstein studying type of work. But now it's become very real and practical. And I'm seeing how much our relationship to time determines a lot, and how we relate to time, how we spend our time. It's this interesting microcosm that we can use to understand our values, how we relate to people, how we relate to our work. So now a lot of my work is around helping both individuals and teams around their relationship to time. Yeah,
time's our most valuable asset. What do you think people struggle with the most?
Understanding that it is that. They understand it on a conceptual level, but to understand it deeply, I think is another level. And when you think about money, people have all kinds of programs to track money, and you've got investors around money, and you've got just so much that's done in the self-help space around it about your relationship to money. And yet money is something that you can greatly increase. Time is a resource that's really limited. We only have so much. And the interesting thing is, while many people have different levels of the amount of money they have, time is this oddly great equalizer. It's like our greatest resource. How are we going to spend our time on this planet? And it's also very equal in that we all have so many hours in a day. So how we relate to this, and I think it's we talk about spending time like the way we talk about spending money, and yet we don't account for time and invest time and think about time with that same kind of precision and value that we have in our relationship to money. And I think that's going to change.
How do you help people change that?
It starts really small, really small, and then it gets bigger and bigger. So a small exercise, for example, is especially at a meeting when you have people around, when it would be awkward, you just have everybody be in silence for like a minute. And a minute in that silence feels so long. And then even expanding it to 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes feels like an hour. And you start to relate to time differently by just pausing. And I like that better than telling people to meditate. Meditate's got all this baggage around it. Instead, just sit, literally just sit and do nothing, not even on your phone. You can keep your eyes open. You can look around. You can do whatever you want, but do nothing for those 5 minutes or however long. And you start to realize, whoa, 5 minutes is a lot of time. I actually first started realizing this when I was dating a woman in the military who was a captain. She was a captain for years in the military. And I said, what do you know as somebody in the military that we wouldn't know? What surprised you? And without missing a beat, she said 30 seconds is a lot of time to get something done. And that blew me away, that she relates to time so differently in the military as we do as civilians. And I think that that's what intrigues me the most is, okay, slowly, step by step, how do we change our relationship to time? And it starts with something like that. And then the next level of it is being on time or early to everything, just being impeccable, even if it's just for a day, just to experiment with it. And a lot of people's resistance comes up through that. But again, it's this great equalizer, and the way that we relate to it, it goes so deep. So for example, people talk a lot about believing in themselves, or like, do you believe in yourself? No, I don't think it's about that, because that's this whole mindset thing, which I can go off on a whole rant on why mindset is baloney. But when, we can totally go there. But the way we relate to time, if you say I'm going to be somewhere at 8 and you're not, your mind actually stops believing you and says, oh, yeah, right, Sylvia, you're going to be there at 8. Yeah, right. And we break down in our ability to believe ourselves. Yet being on time and early for everything builds up that belief muscle that says, well, when we say we're going to do something, we do it. And having that relationship to yourself, priceless. So these are a few of the levels, and I can tell you they each gets higher and higher. Like you're building, like you're lifting a weight and lifting more and more pounds, but you need to start small. Something as small as just sitting there for a minute and understanding how long a minute really is.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to mindsets being baloney.
Yes. Yes, I don't know if this is a family show, so I'm using words like baloney.
It's fine. What would be? Oh, okay. I'm just realizing the other word you could use for that.
Got it. Yes.
Yeah.
I know the German word too, if you want me to start using that. So
no. No, we're good. Let's explain why you think mindsets are baloney.
Oh, yes. This hit me in this moment of rage in a way, because where it hit me was there was this Facebook group I was in, and they were saying, let's read this book about money. And I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Something feels off. But, I like doing things outside my comfort zone. So I'll try it. Everybody's reading it. Let's read this. And I read this book about money, and the author, she's talking all about, it's a book on tape, and I'm listening to it. And she's talking about mindset, saying you've got to have, about this abundance mindset and think this way and think that way. And it's going to, and I practically threw it down, because what hit me was that this is not only this book, this is so many books out there, is that what the author does is they're in an awful situation. She's broke. And then what happens is she does something really weird or different. She decides to do that, or try this or try that, or whatever that is. And that leads to the next thing, that leads to the next thing. And boom, she's rich. And then she comes down from the mountain and says, guys, I've discovered it. It's all about mindset. You just got to change your mind. But the thing is, nowhere, none of these stories is the author like, you know what happened? I was really broke. And then I read this book. And then boom, like I adopted this mindset and then my life changed. Nobody has that story. It's always they took an action, they got a result, they shifted their mindset. The mindset is the result change. It's not what got them there. And I'm like, everybody is peddling this. They're saying because they found it at the top of the mountain, but that's not how you got to the top of the mountain. So it's everybody's different path to the top of the mountain. But you get the mindset as a result. The mindset isn't what got them there. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. I actually thought about that today. I was listening to an audiobook on tape and I had the same thought, because I thought, come on, has this ever really worked for anybody without taking action? So thank you for explaining that to me, because yes, I agree.
My pleasure. Yeah, I'm spreading the word.
That gets us there. Yeah, for sure. It's the action that gets us there, I think.
Yeah, and they would say, well, yes, but if you get into the mindset, then you'll think about the right action. But it's like, no, the action is going to get you the mindset. And that can be very different for each person. And so it just, it hit me that they're peddling this stuff. And the reason why I realized I hit a nerve was I did a Facebook Live on this, and I got the most incredible responses from people in emails where they were saying, "Oh my God, thank you. I needed to hear this because I've been beating myself up that I have the wrong mindset and I haven't been able to get the right mindset." And so people are silently suffering out there as they're trying to think differently and getting no result.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really hard to think your way into a new way of acting where you can just act your way into a new way of thinking.
Yeah, it's that action, and that action can be different from everybody, and you take it and then you up level your mindset. And so it's really more about determining, I'd rather the book be about, and this is a lot of what I'm developing my program about, the 48-hour day, is part of it is saying, hey, what's that thing you're avoiding? Because it's draining your energy and it's draining your time, and you got to do it, and either you got to let go of it or do it. What's that thing? And so it's not me telling them how to think. It's like, hey, what's in that closet there that you're not telling me about? Because if you do that, it's going to free up a ton of energy. You're going to believe in yourself more. You're going to up level yourself. And so the content of the program that I'm developing is really like you. It's whatever your stuff is. We're going to work with your stuff. Yes, I can talk a lot about theories around time, and I want to, for anybody who wants to geek out about that, I'm writing about that and doing it. But what I love about it is that you don't have to. We can just work with whatever exists in your space, because that's where the work is going to happen.
Yeah. So what are people's number one complaints or avoidances? Is there a pattern?
Oftentimes it is around these big type of topics around money, around time, around relationships. It tends to be, it's very different, but it's whatever that thing is that keeps looping through your mind that you're avoiding. Like, I should really do this. I should really do that. And examining, am I really going to do it? Or do I have to break up with it? Do I need to let that go? Or do I just need to sit down and just finally do it? It's not like that ever goes away. It's kind of like that eat the frog thing, is that you do that first thing in the morning, you don't really want to do it, and you get that out of the way. But I do think the general theme of resistance seems to be, especially in regards to time, is almost this immaturity. And I say that lovingly because I've been there. I'm still working on it. Is that this kind of idea, like we can shape our reality to be whatever we want it to be. And that if I need 5 more minutes, I need 5 more minutes, and I'm going to take that. But we're actually hurting ourselves. So I'm advising this team at a big brand right now. And one of the women on the team was saying that, she tried to get these extra few minutes in and then found herself rushing to work, stressed getting there. All her time and energy in the car is spent thinking, how do I switch lanes and get to work on time? Whereas if she hadn't, if you leave with that more time, boom, you've got more space. You've got time to think. You can think about other things. Maybe you can make a really relaxed phone call when we really acknowledge that we don't have all the time in the world. We can't just stretch time to what we want it to be. We can't have this magical thinking of, oh, let me just squeeze in everything in the day that I think I can get in. And it's actually a much better way of going about it. And it's also something where, God forbid, on the opposite side of that, you're rushing and you get into an accident, you get hurt, or you hurt somebody else. So really honoring time and saying, look, we are limited. We have a limited amount of time in the day, and giving it that space and that buffer room is huge, rather than thinking we can just manipulate things to whatever we need them to be.
I always think that my sense of freedom and space and time comes from having discipline. How do you feel about that?
I totally agree. I'd love to know, like, what is your discipline? Like, what discipline does that for you?
Daily rituals and routines and time blocking really helps me maximize my experience of time and what's possible in a day.
Yeah. So what daily ritual does it for you?
Well, it honestly, it starts with meditation in the morning.
Yeah.
Or a form of meditation. So sometimes I need to move a muscle to change a thought. Meaning I ride my bike, or I do yoga. I do something that has a meditative quality to it. And that's how I start my day, no matter what. And during that process, I try to think about things I'm really grateful for, things I'm really excited about. And I think about people in my life, which puts me in a really good mindset through the motion, physical motion,
Mm-hmm.
that I really feel that sustains my awareness and my presence throughout the day. I like planning at the end of the day to really understand like what got done, what didn't get done, why didn't it get done, what do I need to do tomorrow, what do I want to do tomorrow, what do I want to actually cross off my to-do list here, what's no longer important, like where am I procrastinating and where am I managing delay, right? Like to just have clarity before I go to bed. And then I feel like if I go to bed with a plan and clarity, I wake up with a mission, so it just becomes automated, right? And
that's beautiful.
Yeah. So those two things, I would say, it's the strongest ones. And then time blocking really helps too.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, a quote I used to keep on my desk was, discipline is the art of remembering what you want.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm going to write that down.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you want?
Ooh. How long is this podcast again?
You got 2 minutes.
I got 2 minutes?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, geez. Bottom line, I realized for me is bottom line, I want to be me. And I know that sounds so cliche, but to really be myself. I found that a challenge just throughout my days and my years, is just being myself, and how much I alter myself depending on situations, depending on the people, that kind of thing. And I think that, recently I realized I was going to write a blog post on this, that in relationships, romance, dating, that kind of thing, there's this focus on what the other person is. And I want a person who's this, and that, right? But I've realized in my best situations, I like myself around that person. And I'm kind of obsessed with this notion right now of how can I get that without needing it to be another person that helps draw me out of it. And so this morning, I actually started a new discipline that I'm working on, which is, in some ways I call it podcasting for one. So you've probably heard of the morning ritual called the morning pages. Where you write 2 pages straight, like whatever's just coming through, and it helps with the creativity. So this time on my bike, you should have seen it. It looked like a crazy person. On my bike, I was essentially podcasting for one. I just started talking, and it was like morning pages, but through my voice. And it was so fun. I started to discover things that I just hadn't thought of before, and made some connections that I hadn't before. And one of the things that came to me was this because one of my greatest desires, you asked, what do I want, is to be seen and heard. It's funny because my friend Jill, she said, what is it about men creating businesses to address their emotional needs from childhood? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't do that. And she's like, are you kidding? You're a public speaker. You did everything to be seen and heard. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, I'm on my bike and I'm doing this little podcast for one, just for me, talking to myself. And, it hits me, what if I develop this as a discipline? Because if I do, and I can hear myself, then maybe I won't have that as a need, like to be needy from that for others. And then I can enter relationships a lot more full of, I'm here to give, I'm here to create, I'm here to co-create, as opposed to how can I get this need met to be seen and heard.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I'm a huge fan of that. I used to blog. I hate writing. I tried to journal this morning, and I just felt I was sitting there trying to do this narcissistic exercise of self-reflection. And I had this like morning page writing, journaling stuff. It's just so not my thing. And eventually I just like tossed it aside, and I got on a bicycle and I started riding around, and I just kind of, there's something about that movement and the momentum and the speed. And, it's like when I go kite surfing, it's the same thing. I get that same thing out of it. And I talk out loud. I do that on the bike. I did it when I was kite surfing, and I find that really refreshing. I used to record myself a lot. I used to record myself with a transcription service, and they would just transcribe it for me. And then I always thought about making it into blog posts. And then I realized it was just a matter of just getting it out.
Yes.
That was my way of getting it out. And I don't think anybody needs to hear
it. Right.
Nope. But the act of recording it and speaking it and vocalizing it. And, when you live in New York, anyway, nobody cares when you talk out loud. It's like everybody's crazy. It's like everybody's crazy. Nobody cares.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, a little different here in Berlin right now. I did get some like I got the side eye from a few people this morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a little bit, Like, what is she doing? I was like, talking out loud. It's very cathartic. You should try it.
It is. I think we're starting a trend here, Sylvia.
Yeah, I love it. Podcasting for one.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Amazing. We're already at the end of our time. Thank you so much.
Oh, no.
Here. Yes, we are. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And we're going to post all of the links to what you're doing, what you're up to, and how to find you below this podcast.
Great. Well, for those listening, robertrichman.com. You can find out what I'm up to, or xpill.com. Thank you, Sylvia. It's so awesome to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Before I leave you, I want to invite you into my world. Join us at the DNX Festival in September in Lisbon. If you go to our website and use the promo code podcast50, you get an extra €50 off your ticket. And subscribe to this channel and leave us a review if you can. We will review these frequently, and you can leave us a question that we will answer live online. Until next time.